Has Kershaw exercised these postseason demons?
I think as far as being labeled a choker or what have you, he certainly has. He may have a little bit of work to do to be considered clutch and rising to the occasion and even better than he is in the regular season, which is almost impossible to do because really what is clutch? It's being as good as you are in the high leverage situations. You look at Derek Jeter's postseason career compared to his regular season career, it's the same. Kershaw was great last night. You expect him to be great going forward. The one concern is he's given up a lot of home runs in this postseason. He has allowed 8 earned runs on 7 home runs, and that could be problematic when you go to Houston, which is a much more homer-friendly ballpark.
Yeah, it looks like he could start Game 5 if the series goes that long, and I'm hoping that the series does go that long. I think you look inside of his game, so to speak, and you can find places where he is making up for those things he was criticized for earlier on in his postseason career. How about this? In his 6th playoff 7th inning. So you know that 7th inning has always been very, very difficult for Kershaw. He's pitched in 6 of them in his postseason career. His ERA before yesterday, 25.5. I mean, that's really where guys were starting to get to him. And of course, he goes into scoreless 7th inning last night. And I think those kinds of small victories, if we start pulling those out a little bit as opposed to just looking at the wins and stuff like that, I think you're going to see that Kershaw is being very focused on trying to right the wrongs of the past.
Yeah, and when you go into the games, the question is no longer going to be, does Kershaw need to prove himself in that regard, which in itself takes a little bit of the pressure off. Now, the question going forward in this series, because we're going to see Justin Verlander, who would you rather see win a ring, Verlander or Kershaw?
I guess the obvious answer is Verlander, because he's older, because he's had 2 trips previously to the World Series with the Detroit Tigers that ended in heartbreak. So you want to say Verlander, but I actually have to go Kershaw on this. I feel like the narrative has gotten so big around Kershaw and his postseason, and it's almost, I think, gotten to a place where it's a little jump the shark and maybe become a little bit overblown about just how bad he actually has been. And so for him, I think it's actually most necessary for him to add to all of the accolades that he has had in his career. All that's missing is the ring, and you get the feeling that if he adds 1, the floodgates open for him.
Yeah, it's not an easy answer, right? Because it's not like either one of these guys is imminently dislikable or something along those lines. But you mentioned Kershaw. What was the nickname? Peyton Kershaw. And it is very analogous to Peyton Manning, who did struggle relative to his greatness in the postseason, but it got to a point where that was overblown. Same thing has happened to Kershaw. Peyton Manning did enough where that's not really a part of his legacy or conversation. And the same thing would go for Kershaw. So if you're rooting for overall greatness, you're probably rooting for Kershaw because he has the chance to cement himself to the highest levels of the hierarchy.